Hi guys, and welcome to another review. This time around I'm actually going to be focusing mainly on three IEMs, namely the APEVOIX Grid, the NiceHCK NX8, and the CKLVX, the Major Audio CK2V. All of these IEMs here, they have several factors which are the reason why they are here, obviously. All of them are tribrids. And tribrids, was something that in past times was a configuration reserved for more high-end stuff. So you would have to start spending some serious money to gain access to let's call it that technology. And then a couple of years ago, we started having some cheaper tribrids coming along. Things like the Phoenix Call from Celeste was probably one of the first, let's say, more budget accessible tribrids. Another one was the NiceHCK NX8, although perhaps only in its final version was it more polished. The initial versions were a little bit more crude. But anyway, the reality is this: the market has evolved tremendously since, I would say, late 2023, mid 2023 onwards. It's evolved really dramatically in every aspect. Is it a positive thing? It is a negative thing. Well, it's positive on the one hand because there's way more variety for you guys. Negative on the other hand because there isn't really any true difference or significant difference the majority of the times. And what ends up being the deciding factor between many IEMs is what's the quality of the accessories, what's the quality of the build, because oftentimes, or more often than less, the basic tuning is always kind of the same thing. But anyway, all of this to kind of set the stage for these IEMs, which are all tribrids. All of them are priced in at around $200. And they all have a tribrid configuration, which again departs from the more, let's say, previous high-end tribrid configuration that we were used to seeing, which it involved DDs usually for the lower end, some BAs for mids and higher frequency, and then there would be some ESTs, some electrostatic drivers, more electrics than anything, not really electrostatic in its more, let's say, correct manner. But anyway, I'm not going to delve into that. These ones, they offer that configuration, but either with the addition to the, they still have that basic formula of the DD with the BAs, but then they either offer bone conduction drivers, which is the case here of the PULA, the Anvil, the 114, the case of the APEVOIX, the Grid. Then the other option is they add to that basic formula some microplanars, which is the case of the CKLVX, the 2V, the case of the EPZ P50, and the case here as well of the Performer 5+2. Or then they add a PZT, a piezoelectric, which is the case of the NX8, my apologies, from NiceHCK. So let's say there's an attempt by all of these brands to offer us that tribrid magic using, let's call it these more, I wouldn't really say cheaper, but these interesting other options for a third type of driver. Okay, let's run through then what I have here very quickly. Like I said, I've got here the PULA, the Anvil, the 114. I've reviewed this IEM before. It's 1 plus 4 plus 1 plus 1 plus 4, so 4 BAs, one DD, and one bone conduction. It's priced at around $190, so very competitive in its price, and a very solid performer. That's the reality. Bone conduction, especially when we are talking about the cheaper implementations of bone conduction, there's kind of two types. There's a type where the shell is a metal shell and the driver is attached to that metal shell, and usually in those cases the effect is felt more on the lower frequencies. Then there's the implementation like the case of the PULA, where yes, the driver internally is still attached to the shell, but it's glued to the shell, and so you get an effect which kind of also prolongs itself more into the mids, into the lower mids and into the mids. But this to say what? To say that bone conduction, it does have its reason for being. It does have its reason for existence. But if it's not properly executed, then there is going to be some limitation to the performance. And one of the IMs that jumps to mind immediately, and there's nothing wrong with the IM, mind you. I actually like the IM, and I think it's a nice IM. I just don't think it's a competent IM when we are wanting to use it, more on the musical end of things. Is, for example, the KB here, the KB02. Fair enough, it's a 1+1. It costs about $50, so not crazy money or anything of the sort. But that implementation of the bone conduction, they could have been a little bit more polished. It could have been a little bit more, we also have some options from CVJ, the Konoka and the Assassin, which actually, if I am totally fair, they actually are tribrids, and very cheap tribrids at that. And there, the implementation of the bone conduction again hasn't been the most favorable. Okay, but anyway. So we have here like I said, the PULA. Next to that, one of the main reasons for this review today, which is the APEVOIX, the grid, as the same configuration of 1+1+4. This particular unit, I got it from LINSOUL. The PULA I got it from HIFIGO. Got it from LINSOUL. It costs around the $220, give or take. Brings a very interesting case. I mean, actually, the case is basically the box in which it comes in. Nice. It's a little bit big, and definitely not pocketable. Plenty of space. It's got a decent, decent tips, decent cable as well. Let me just grab it here. Decent cable. Nice enough. The IM itself, again, a nice resin shell. It is a solid IM. There's really nothing that I can point in terms of its build quality or the accessories that is not favorable. It's been well built. It fits nicely. Well accessorized. I think maybe its biggest difficulty is the rivals that it has, and its main rival, obviously, because it shares the same configuration, is a PULA, and the PULA is quite a bit cheaper. And in this market, which is so competitive, you definitely have to make sure that you do your homework and you've done everything to make sure that your IM is going to be, let's say, successful and stand a chance against other options. Otherwise, you kind of dead, from birth. Next to that, the Mayer Audio, the CKLVX, the CK2V. Once again, I mean, really nice CKLVX or Mayer Audio. They have always a nice accessory package. The case is nice. It's way more pocketable. It brings a good selection of tips. It's got an exchangeable termination on the cable. The cable is really nice. It's a really nice cable. It kind of reminds me of the cables that you used to see as well on the Jazeer, the 41T. So nice cable. The IM itself, considering it's a tribrid, and it also has quite a large number of drivers inside, 4 BAs, the DD plus the 2 microplanars. It's actually quite small. It fits fantastically. Beautiful faceplate. Really nice faceplate. I have to admit, not that the PULA or the APEVOIX are not, equally beautiful, but there's just, when you grab all three of them and you look at them, and there's just something here about the 2V that just oozes just that little extra smidge of elegance. Let's put it that way. Fit, like I said, beautiful. Accessories, again, very nice. Price, once more, a very competitive price. We're talking about $180, give or take. So well priced. In that aspect, I have to admit that Mayer Audio, have hit the nail on the head. Next to that, the NiceHCK NX8. It's got exchangeable nozzles, although the truth be told, I've measured with one and measured with the other, and exactly the same, no difference. In the previous model, which they had, the NX7, the nozzles did bring about a bigger change in the sound, and the NX7, it was the last version, the Mark IV, that really, I think, was the one that was able to not only sort out mainly sort out the tuning problem, because using a PZT driver, it can bring about some very quick negative aspects of harshness and timbre and so on. Let me actually remove here this if I can get it out, right, because it doesn't want to. Oh my, come on, let's see if I can get the other one out. For some reason, just this is so well glued. This is also a NiceHCK cable, by the way, but it's not the stock cable. The stock cable is actually quite a nice cable, mind you. I don't have it here with me now, so but it's a decent cable. It's a decent enough cable. Oh, what is wrong with you, Tony? You're getting old, or you butterfingers or something? It's really well glued, this protection. It's the faceplate, huh? It doesn't. Oh, yes. Finally, there we go. Okay. The NX8, very, very classy faceplate as well. The whole IM, I mean, it's a nice departure from some of the stuff that we sometimes see from NiceHCK in terms of the overall build. I mean, they have, yes, of course, the Himalaya and so on. It's a nice IM, nice metal shell. But this, I have to say that they chose wisely. Nice size, fits beautifully. It's got 6 BAs, a PZT, and a DD inside. And when you consider the high driver count, nothing to be said there. Really well accessorized. The tips that it brings are those KBE style tips that I really enjoy. The case as well, again, very nice. Not as pocketable as maybe the Mayer Audio, but it fits nicely as well. Everything inside, and nothing to be said. Price wise, again, around the $180 to $190 price point. Kind of depends where you get it from, but that's the price that it goes for. And then next to that, we have the EPZ, the P50. Also, like the 2V, the CK2V, using planars, but it's 1DD, 2 BAs, and 2 planars. So it loses 2 BAs to the 2V. Nice buck style casing. The case looks really nice. This is a case which is very similar to the case of, if you remember the RSV from Softiest used the case, which was exactly the same. At least my RSV has got exactly the same case, obviously not with the EPZ logo embossed on it. The EPZ again brings really nice tip selection, nothing to be said there, although I have to say and have to admit that I preferred using the Divinus Velvet on them. The cable is decent. I would have liked a slightly better cable, but again, I can't really complain because overall the build quality is nice. They've used good quality good quality hardware internally. It's got an interesting detail here is the fact that it's kind of a semi-open back design. If you can look here on the faceplate, it's got plenty of holes to breathe, and you do notice some sound coming out of it. And that's it. Again, fit, not an issue. Well, up to now, really, none of them have been an issue. And well, gladly so. And then finally, we have here this is not the stock case, by the way, for the Performer 5+2. The Performer, the AFUL. Again, also, this is not the stock cable. This is an effect audio cable. This costs around $220 something dollars. Once again, a tribrid using a microplanar, single microplanar. We have 4 BAs and 2 6mm dynamic drivers. So they've added a dynamic driver to that basic equation, 2 6mm dynamic drivers, and then it's got that microplanar, just a single one, helping out in the top end. Okay, let's start talking a little bit more now in detail, because I mean, I've been here talking now for 14 minutes and you guys are going to get bored just now. I'm going to get the APEVOIX, the grid, out of the way. Like I said, the grid has in the PULA, the Anvil, its main, let's say, adversary. It uses the same configuration. They are closely tuned to a certain extent, up to about, I would say, 5K, give or take. And then from there onwards, that's where things change significantly. And what ends up happening is two things. You have a darker sounding IM on the grid as opposed to the PULA. The PULA's got a lot more detail up top, a lot more detail. And that detail comes accompanied with superior technicalities, not day and night superior, but superior. There's a more sense of air, there's more sense of soundstage, there's a better sense of imaging, a better sense of, you can determine, you can position things, instruments better with the Anvil as opposed to the grid. Slightly improved as well, micro detailing, better resolution. Overall, they both have the same sort of bass, which is more mid-bass heavy. So there's an emphasis placed on more that mid-bass thickness, which is, it's nice, it's welcomed. It will work really well with specific genres. Maybe not so well with others. Maybe if you are, a person that likes listening to a lot of detail in terms of vocals and so on and so forth, this can confer some extra huskiness to the vocals, to the performer, male or female, that might maybe take it away from its more realistic performance. But the reality is this, they both play very similarly, except for that aspect of then in the upper mids and treble, there being significantly more amounts of detail. Well, significantly maybe is a bit of a big word, but there's more detail, an audible difference in terms of detail in the PULA as compared to the Anvil. And it's not that one is better than the other. I guess maybe they will focus on two crowds of people. But if I have to think of it as which will be the one that will be the most satisfying to a larger number of people, I will have to say the Anvil is the one that wins. Which will be, in terms of accessories, they're very closely matched. Built cable, everything is very close. It's then in the price where you see the Anvil as well, again taking a huge leap forward in terms of the lead. There's a $40 to $50 price difference, where the grid doesn't really bring or do anything that is special. If maybe the grid had some way of adjusting the higher frequency, or maybe some adjustable nozzles, or something there to justify that extra price, okay, you could say, fine, all right, there's an extra price, the difference, although the tuning is slightly different, the grid would make sense. But no, under the circumstances that we have here, the Anvil is definitely the one that will be the wiser choice, I think, for most people. Mids, because of the fact that the grid is slightly warmer, slightly darker in its presentation, and let me, by the way, just say that both of them have got more that organic type of presentation. What ends up happening is in female vocals, especially, you notice that this is just closed down just a little extra bit. And you notice it as well with something like Carol Duboc. You notice it. It's easy to pick up on it. You don't have to be an experienced listener to pick up on that difference. And then, like I said earlier, on the treble end, there's a noticeable difference in terms of energy. It's not that the quality of the treble here on the grid is bad. No, it isn't. Definitely, you do not notice any BA timbre or anything of the sort. So in that aspect, that I have to give it its marks. In terms of fatigue, it's questionable which one of them will be more fatiguing. But okay, if I have to go in and let's choose a song like Down with the Sickness from Disturbed. perhaps most people might be able to listen to that song at higher volumes for a longer period of time on the grid than on the Anvil. But there again, it begs the question. Okay, so listen to it at high volumes. You got to protect your hearing. So if you listen to it at normal volume levels, I think they are equal in that aspect. There's really not going to be any difference. Stuff like cymbals as well, and certain guitar plucks and hi-hats and so on, they do come across in slightly more detail, slightly more realistic presence in the Anvil as opposed to the grid. But look, it's like I said, it's not that one is worse, one is better. I'm looking at it, or I'm trying to be as fair as possible in my assessment. Overall, the one that, in my opinion, ticks the most right boxes and that therefore ends up making the most sense is the PULA. Coupled to that, if you ask me, hey Tony, what's your personal preference? I will say as well, the PULA, the Anvil is my personal preference. And even when I reviewed it, I mentioned already that it was a fantastic IM that truly made sense. If you are a collector and you want to have something which is unique and does a job very nicely, then definitely this is the one to go for. Oh, and another thing, just to quickly wrap up this part here concerning the grid, which has to do with the bone conduction. And I think it's down to the fact that because we don't have because we don't have on the grid as much energy from the upper mids and treble, it's easier to notice the bone conduction and that hollowness that it sometimes showcases when the implementation isn't exactly the ideal. The KB ear, for example, is a perfect example of that. Once more, you notice that kind of sound that's at the end of a corridor or something quite easily, which then obviously limits the type of music you're going to be listening to, or it's going to make the listening experience more of just a normal listening experience as opposed to a more, let's say, audiophile listening experience, if that is what you're looking for. And in this, when you take that, when you consider that aspect that I'm talking about, and you take it here in the PULA and in the APEVOIX, and how one does it and the other does it, there were very, very few times that I got even a remote feeling of that hollowness in the PULA, while on the grid I picked up on it quite a few times. Aphrodite from Friedman was another song where I picked up on it. Another one that was relatively easy to pick up on that hollowness was Riviera by the Bob Zop remix. La Belle Dance Sans Regrets from Chris Botti. Again, you can pick up on that hollowness. It's not, I'm not going to say it's a deal breaker. No, it isn't, because the overall presentation of the grid is a agreeable one. But when you take into consideration that there's another IM which has got exactly the same sort of configuration and style and everything, and it does it better, then what do you want me to say? That the Anvil isn't superior? No, the Anvil is a superior IM there. Okay, so that's it. That's that one out of the way. Now, let's talk the NiceHCK, and we'll leave the 2V for last. The NiceHCK, what a surprise. Let me put it to you this way. I liked, like I said, the NX7, the Mark IV version especially. It was a surprise because you can see that NiceHCK over the previous NX7, they tried to make sure that the tuning was improved, that the tuning became a more mature, more elegant tuning, and that the PZT above all was better integrated into the whole configuration. And in this version, not this version, sorry, but in this model, the NX8, they've taken that a step further, because at the end of the day, you got 6 BAs, the DD plus the PZT. You got to integrate all these drivers, and they've done a very nice job. That's all I will start by saying. The tuning is very reminiscent of the tuning of the AFUL, very much the same style. And then it's got this kind of organic old school type of tuning again, which is similar to the tuning of the Anvil and of the grid, but it's got this. It's just I'm trying to find the best way to describe. It's just very musical. It's a very easy IM to listen to, and when I start taking some of the songs that I like listening to, I couldn't really find any fault, and I was very much reminded of the sound of the AFUL in numerous times. And even if I have to be totally fair, in some occasions I was very much preferring the NiceHCK and the way it's presented itself over the AFUL, and that's saying a lot, because you guys know that I like the AFUL. Well, I like all of their products, to be honest. Every single one of their products has had a very solid, let's say, definition of what the sound they were trying to obtain from it was, and they have achieved that all the time. Yes, some people didn't like this model, some people didn't like that model, some people thought they were gimmicky with all of those systems that they had, especially with the Cantor and the single BA that they also had. I forget now the name. That, oh no, it's not doing anything. The truth is this, people. AFUL know what they are doing. They are a solid company that does very solid R&D. They release very few IEMs every year. Very few IEMs every year. In 2023, they released 2. Last year, they released 2. This year, from what I understand, it's going to be 2 at the most, maybe 3 IEMs. Okay, so they don't pump out IEMs just for the sake of pumping out, and that shows that when they do their work, they make sure that they study the IEM. They try. If I'm not mistaken, in the Cantor, they had something like almost 30 different versions of the Cantor until they finally reached the version that they thought, okay, this is good enough to be sold. So when I'm saying that the NX8 has got a sound which very much comes close and matches and exceeds the sound of the AFUL, I'm giving it a serious praise. That's the reality, especially when you then consider that again there's a price difference here of $40-50. That's, I think, is high praise. In more detail with regards to the NX8, what do I think it then, or what is the breakdown I give then on the sound? Bass, it's a solid bass. It's clean. Just rewinding here slightly, the bone conduction is supposed to help with the bass, making the bass cleaner. And if there's one thing that, yes, when I was listening to these two, the 114 and the Grit, that I did find was that, yes, the bass on the PULA did sound a little bit extra sharp, a little bit extra cleaner, perhaps because of the implementation of the bone conduction having been done slightly better than in the Grit, but also because you get more energy. And all of that to say what? That the bass performance here on the NiceHCK, in my opinion, is on the same level as the PULA, although there's no bone conduction. So it's a clean, it's a detailed, it has a good sense of authority, of weight to it. It's just very musical, very, very musical, the bass, and very easy to, okay, you could argue maybe this or that song, there could be a little bit extra snappiness in the sound, a little extra speed. Fine, I'm not going to argue that. But overall, and the way that everything is being matched between all of the drivers, guys, trust me, there's very little or nothing that I can pick on with regards to the NX8. It's got really, really solid bass presentation. Mids, male and female vocals come across, in my opinion, perfect, just like I like. Every bit on the par with the mid performance of the AFUL, and that the AFUL, the mids on the AFUL are really, really good. And then up top, contrary to what you would be maybe thinking or expecting from a PZT, oh, it's going to be harsh or not well done, and you're going to notice that timbre of the PZT and that metallicness, nothing. And that's where you can definitely see that NiceHCK, or whoever designed this IM for NiceHCK, they did their work. They did their homework. The PZT sounds phenomenal. Yes, there's not as much detail as maybe in a more crude implementation of a PZT, but that crudeness then also brings with it other negative aspects. but it's perfect. It sounds clean, detailed, not clean and detailed as on the level of the AFUL, but again, and to be fair, the difference isn't as big as you might expect. Trust me, it's not as big as you might expect. But if I take it and I compare it, for example, to these two, let me say this. I would take the NX8 over the Grit easily. And the NX8 compared to the PULA, they trade blows. Again, I'm being very positive towards the NX8, much like I was with the NX8 versus the AFUL. The NX8 versus the PULA, they are very, very solid. Which is the best, better one? Which is the? I'm not going to say. I would say once more, if you are a collector, these are two IMs that make sense owning in your collection. If you can only afford one of them, then the best is just try and listen to them and see what you think. All right, so bass, mids, treble, everything, in my opinion, very well executed. Technically, that's where, you know, it's not, look, the soundstage, well, okay, fine, it could have been slightly bigger, but it's fine. The imaging, I was expecting a little bit more, but it then makes up by maybe the soundstage and the imaging not being the ideal or the most adequate for the price, by having a very correct timbre and tonality. Really nice. The timbre and tonality, which is something that I pay particular attention to, and I always want that to be an aspect of an IM that I'm listening to, that is agreeable. Even if the IM has got a colored sound, if the timbre and the tonality, even if it's not perfect, is agreeable, I will like it. You know, I don't really have. Look, it's my pet peeve. I like it to sound, to have a nice timbre, to have a nice tonality to it. Okay, timbre and tonality, definitely. It's better quality. Okay, in the technical aspects, and that's it, guys. I mean, there's really not much more that I can say. A solid IM from a company that, you know, it's kind of a hit or miss. They sometimes have some interesting products, sometimes or more times than less, they have products which are just, you know, adequate. The Himalaya, for example, yes, it's a nice single DD. It could have been a little bit better, in my opinion, but it's a nice single DD. I think the biggest problem with the Himalaya was the price. Because you enter a price point which you are having, you know, many other options which are very solid and better overall. And I'm not even talking about cheaper IMs which will perform as well as the Himalaya. And in the case of the NX8, I think at least they've been wise to price it, to place it at a price point where most of everything has been well adjusted. So good technicalities, good accessories. My apologies. Good build quality. Fantastic sound. So everything is basically been well thought about, so that it could be a competitive product. All right. So that's the NiceHCK. Let's get that out over there. And now finally then the CKLVX, the 2V, and I'm going to bring you the P50 a little bit more closer, and they are full once again. All of these, like I said, have got the microplanars. There's three different styles of tuning here. We could say the tuning style here of the AFUL, like as well, not perhaps, but like the tuning of the NiceHCK, the NX8, is a more kind of neutralish type presentation. There's no real dips or peaks in the whole frequency range, so kind of a neutralist with a slight emphasis on the bass, slight emphasis on the mids, but everything is very kind of kept within certain boundaries. While, for example, when we were talking here about the AFUL and the Anvil and the Grit, there was a definite emphasis on the mid bass. Okay, getting back to these three. The P50 is definitely an IM focused on the mids. The mids are the star of the show, with the bass being maybe a little bit leaner than would be ideal. But I think the biggest problem with the P50, and it maybe not reaching the success that it could reach, is that people are not really getting it to fit 100% perfect in your ears. Coupled to the fact that it's an open back design, it's not going to be very forgiving if you don't fit it properly, in the sense that you will then lose a lot of that bass energy. But what is there, if you get the fit, spot on like I am, is very good. The bass that is there, although by no means am I saying that it's a bass monster, it is an adequate bass for the rest of the frequency range, and it has got, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, it's got a very nice quality. The quality is very much conducive with what it costs, and superior to IEMs, even more expensive than what it costs. So, when I heard some people saying that the bass wasn't good and wasn't fast and wasn't detailed and resolving, for me, I immediately thought, well, I'm sure they didn't get it to fit properly. And why? Because when I initially fitted the P50 in my ears, I had that issue. I had that problem, and that's what ended up me deciding to go for the Divinus, because it was the tips that allowed me to get the IM to fit as deep as possible in my ear, and make sure that then the bass is supposed to do and be what it was intended to be. And it's very much what happens with, for example, the Etymotics. The Etymotics, and for lack of a better word, if you want to get a good bass presentation of them, you have to rape your ear canals. Period. End of story. You are going to have to rape your ear canals. If you do not fit an Etymotic deep, it will sound lean. And I think the people that have complained about the leanness of the P50, that's the problem. The the CK2V is the only IEM here that has that tuck style bass, while on these two the bass has got a slight bump on the mid bass. These two is kind of a more gliding, and that one also a more gliding presentation. Where this one is probably the more lean of the three, definitely. This one has got that tucked style bass that you see this thing in the likes of like the Dos Cinco, the SL41, the Mark II, which, by the way, in essence is what this is. The 2V is in essence an SL41 Mark II version with the addition of of a pair of planars. That's very much what it is. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Let Mayer Audio correct me. But in essence, that's what it is. The Mayer Audio SL41 is a 1+4. This is a 1+4 plus 2 microplanars. And the tuning, if you compare one and the other, and I'll show it to you, is basically the same on both of them, just with the lower energy level on the 2V, and with more detail up top past 10K. And that lower energy and that more detail up top past 10K is precisely so that everything, when it comes together, it sounds more cohesive, it sounds more coherent. You don't notice that the sounds are coming from different drivers. Okay, that's the reason why. What does then the 2V sound, so that we get this done over and done with? 2V, I think, is probably going to be the IM, at least for now, that makes the most sense if you are looking for a tribrid at this price point, using microplanars as that third exotic driver. The bass is phenomenal, in my opinion. Phenomenal. There's no lack of mid bass. And by that, I'm not saying that, now it's at the base of the PULA or the base of the NX8, or it's not. No. Let's be perfectly straightforward and honest and sincere here. Yes, this one, the PULA and the NX8, or the two other IEMs that, in my opinion, have the best ratio of bass quality to bass quantity. The AFUL comes very close to the NX8, but the NX8 is able to edge it out slightly, but then loses out in terms of mids to the AFUL. This one is able to outdo both of them. It might not maybe have as much mid bass, but the difference that it has in mid bass is so minor compared to what it adds to that more sub bass feel, and then to that sensation of air moving without you actually knowing why air is moving. It's very noticeable. Let's put it that way. It's noticeable. It's not an easy, it's not a difficult thing for someone which has trained ears to pick up on, and something that not even someone that has got trained ears will have a hard time picking up on it. And I'll just give you one example. I actually had my wife try the three of them, and she immediately, and she's by no means a bass head or anything of the sort, and she immediately very quickly told me this one was the best. It just had that sensation of involvement of the bass that the other two also have, but this one just had it a little bit more. Okay, the mids, fantastic, every bit as good as the mids of the NX8, of the Anvil, and of the 7+2, the 5+2. My apologies. You might be asking, but what about the mids of the P50? No, the mids of the P50 are very good mids. But if I have to consider one aspect, which is how realistic they are, how, let's say, more audiophile correct they are, the P50 is just slightly behind the others. This is more audiophile correct, that's more audiophile correct, that's more audiophile correct. In that, I would say those two are probably the first to be the most audiophile correct, then this one, then this one. And then we have the CKLV, the CK2V, which for me is in this group, in that initial group of the one that has the most correct sounding mids, male, female vocals, instruments. Everything just comes across in a very natural, very realistic way. Okay. High frequency, very little that I can point as a negative aspect to it, because okay, you got the microplanars. Are the microplanars well implemented? Are they too emphasized? Or they're not too emphasized, or they're realistic, or they're overpowering, or do you notice any unforeseen negative timbre or tonality? Nothing. And it all has to do with how well then all the drivers have been matched. If the bass here wasn't as competent as it is, maybe you would pick up on that aspect, which is, for example, what people did nitpick about the P50. Oh, that the mids and the higher frequency sounded maybe just overly energetic. But again, I repeat, it's down to the fact that they were not getting the IM to fit properly in your ears, and there's nothing wrong with it. Some IMs just fit properly, others just don't. Maybe I just got lucky and I have ears which are open to basically anything. There's not many IMs that I have had an issue with fitting, unless they've got some weird ass design. So in terms of the frequency range, bass, mids, and treble, I've got absolutely nothing to say. Technically, great soundstage, really nice, big, expansive soundstage, great imaging, detail resolution, detail retrieval, micro and macro details, resolution, very, very competent. But Tony, it seems like you're shilling it and this. No, I'm not shilling it. I'm telling you that it edges out the others in ever so slightly here and there. And when you start adding up the score and seeing where everything starts coming out, I personally think that this one is just the one that ticks most of the boxes more often. Most of the songs I like listening to, they just sounded that extra little bit more, nicer. Yeah. Now, having said that, were there songs that maybe I preferred it on other IMs? Yes, I will say that. For example, Sweat by the JK Reef remix by Danny Kane. I actually prefer that song on the Anvil. I think the Anvil just does that song slightly better. If I go for something like, let's say, let's go here for No Love, Busy Explore, I think that the NX8, it's and the Anvil again, or ever so slightly edging out the CK2V. But then if I go to something like Alchemy by Philip Sayce, or Blowback by Galimatias, or Jack of Speed by Steely Dan, this just has that little extra mojo, that little extra little bit of detail. It's minor. this is me obviously listening to them under ideal conditions. I'm not listening to them outside where I'm taking a walk or going to the seaside, to the beach, and having a walk by the sea, or going to the park, or even at the gym. No, in those conditions it would be very difficult to pick up on them. And in those conditions, maybe the one that would ultimately come out on top would be the grit. Okay. No, I'm talking about listening to them in ideal conditions. In terms of source, I used mainly my Q15, my FIO, and then my Frankenstein, like I like calling it, my topping combination with either the Yuki, or then with the Cayenne, the RU7, and I also use the TP50, and I will, and on occasions as well, I also use the M15. I will say that, talking about now sources very, very quickly, there are obviously IMs that their impedance and how it interacts with the output impedance of the actual amp or dongle, something is important and will be very determining on radical changes of sound that you get perceived. But I will say that if, for example, I don't like the P50 on the M15, on the Q style, but on a CS powered dongle, it sounds more balanced, sounds more realistic. The CK2V, I liked it on the M15. Okay, and that's, I think, saying a lot for how well balanced it is in terms of the frequency range. I also think the M15 did benefit slightly, or to a certain volume level, the NX8, but then the NX8, again, I think with something which is CS powered, just or on the Q15 for file, also just comes across overall nice. It just is more involving in its sound. The same thing goes for the PULA, and definitely, for example, the M15 or an ESS dongle would be something that I would definitely recommend the grit to be connected up to, because it just gives that little extra amount of sparkle up top to just open up the sound of the grit without you actually having to go down the road of, oh, let me EQ it and that's it. There are very few times that I EQ it, very, very few times. So basically, there you have it, guys. That's basically it. I mean, we have here 3 IEMs priced very, very closely to each other, competing in a segment which is very, very competitive. I mean, you have 1+4s, 1+2s costing this amount of money. Like I in one of my previous review, I mentioned about the Arcadia. I would take this over the Arcadia. Honestly, I really would. Yes, the Arcadia's got fantastic bass, no question about it. But I would take this over the Arcadia. I would even take this, to be honest, I would even take this over a Dos Cinco. That's how good I think the CK2V is. It's especially when you consider the price, way more competitive in terms of its price than the Dos Cinco. The Dos Cinco for a 1+3, it's expensive by today's standards. The Estrella, for example, where its call to fame is it's got high detail, and this has got the same sort of detail, but done in a manner which just overall makes it sound more polished, not as V-shaped. If you want to go down that terminology, not as maybe overly colored. Okay, and I'm saying this with a grain of salt. So that's basically the conclusion, or my assessment. Any one of them, or any one of these IEMs here, will definitely have a crowd of people that will like it, or a group of individuals that will think that they are the best IEM that's out there. That's undeniable. I try and look at it, and I try to always do my assessment in terms of what's the widest range of people that will be pleased with this IEM. Will this IEM satisfy more people than that IEM, and so on and so forth. And when that is something that I take into consideration, the same way that maybe the P50 will be an IEM that's mostly focused on people that like details and a highly technical IEM that can maybe sometimes sound cold and sterile. The APEVOIX is the complete opposite. The APEVOIX has got a sound which is very musical, very engaging in that aspect, but that can be sometimes perhaps overly dark. So maybe an IM that will be the better one for those that don't like too much treble. And then there are those IMs here which are like the mid-term ones, the ones that do more things correct. The PULA is one of them, the NX8 is another one, the AFUL another one, and the CK, the fourth one that does that. Out of all of them, which is the one that I think will edge out everybody else ever so slightly? I think the 2V will be that one. I honestly do. I realistically think the 2V will be the iron that edges out that one. If I take then price into consideration, these three are equally priced. The AFUL by default gets eliminated. If I take then an aspect of uniqueness of the configuration, well, we've got microplanars. That's pretty cool to have. That's got a microplanar there as well. You've got a bone conduction. You know what? I prefer the PZT there, bone conduction microplanar PZT, which is the more, I would say microplanars is the most unique thing to have. PZT, okay, fine, but you lose a little bit of detail up top as compared here to the 2V. I think 2V definitely, and then comparing the 2V with the bone conduction here, I mean, the bass on this thing is really good, really good. And if the bone conduction is supposed to be helping out in that aspect, or mainly in that aspect, it gets run for its money here with the 2V. So you know, I'm trying definitely very hard to be as fair as possible. The 2V is a very solid IM. Mayor Audio hasn't disappointed up to now, and that's the reality. You know, they've showed us yet again another solidly done IM. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked the review. I hope this was informative enough. I will show you another graphs in part 2. As always, like and subscribe. If there's any questions you want me to reply to, please feel free to do so. All right, you take care now. Bye bye.